The John Thomas family of Block Island. Part 2. Island Soldiers. Across Rhode Island, 25,000 men volunteered to serve their country and to support the Union. John Thomas and his brother-in-law, Lewis Nathaniel Hall, of Block Island, were compelled to enlist. With them, 20 other men in New Shoreham joined the 12th Rhode Island Infantry Regiment. 9 other men on the island volunteered with other regiments. Late October 1862, the 12th Regiment mustered at Camp Stevens, in Providence. After induction and training exercises, they boarded trains headed for Groton, Connecticut. Groton's harbors were a hub for transporting soldiers and armaments from New England. From there, they boarded the steamship Plymouth Rock, which brought them to Jersey City. They continued again by train and by foot to Camp Chase, on the Potomac River across from Washington, D.C.
The following morning at 6 o'clock, we turned out for roll call, and the regiment forming, we proceeded to our rendezvous of the night before, received our breakfast, reformed our ranks, and, marching about the city, visited the Washington Monument.
They also saw the dome of the Capitol building, under construction, as it was, at President Lincoln's inaugural address. After 7 days at Camp Chase, they moved to Camp Casey, near the Fairfax Seminary, to train and assemble with other troops. The seminary campus had become a makeshift military base. Remaining there through the end of November, orders arrived for the 12th Regiment to move to the front near the city of Fredericksburg. On their 50-mile journey, they had deficient rations, heavy clothing, and heavy ammunition, all while on watch for Confederate attacks. The Battle of Fredericksburg would be their only major battle. It was the largest battle fought in the war, with almost 200,000 soldiers engaged. For the Union to cross the Potomac, a pontoon bridge was constructed, close to the Confederate line. Arriving there, they waited until night, in freezing weather, for their turn to cross. On Sunday morning, December 13th, John and Lewis's company prepared to proceed. On the battlefield, they assembled into line and moved to the front while the fighting was in progress. Protecting their designated area, they held their ground until evening, after all their ammunition was fired. They then exited the battle when the Union formed for retreat. The Union lost 1,284 men. Confederate loss, 608. Casualties, over 10,000. A 12th Regiment soldier, Private Civilin Sprague, from Block Island, lost his life that day. He was the only soldier from the island to die in battle. With him was his brother, Seneca, and also a nephew and a cousin. civilian left behind his wife and their 8 children. His name is memorialized on a monument in Providence, Rhode Island. Another notable Block Island soldier at the Fredericksburg Battle was First Lieutenant Jeremiah Turgee. He was a nephew of a prominent island citizen, Nicholas Ball. Jeremiah volunteered into the 2nd Rhode Island Infantry only 2 months after the war began. With an impressive military record, he served through the end of the war in 1865. On Christmas Day, a few weeks after the battle in Fredericksburg, Sergeant Daniel Conley, from Block Island, died after contracting typhoid. In late February and early March, 4 more Block Island soldiers lost their lives to the deadly disease, all within a month's time. Sergeant Samuel Babcock, Private David Mitchell, Private Jesse Mitchell, and Private Benjamin Smith. Among them, they left behind 10 children. The regiment continued on through Virginia, Ohio, and as far as Kentucky. They moved by steamboat, trains, wagons, and hundreds of miles on foot. In June, John Thomas was assigned as company teamster. Teamsters traveled, sometimes far away from their camps, to retrieve food and supplies. This made them a target of Morgan's Raiders, an infamous Confederate group that infiltrated the North. They struck Union depots and supply lines, and terrorized cities and towns. On July 11th, the regiment received orders to report to Cincinnati and from there, begin their final journey, back home to their families in Rhode Island. However, on July 13th, a field report arrived, warning Morgan's Raiders were also on their way there. The regiment's optimism for making it home safely had changed. A week later, another report was sent by Major General Ambrose Burnside, also a Rhode Islander.
By the blessing of Almighty God, I have succeeded in capturing General John H. Morgan, Colonel Kluge, and the balance of the command, amounting to about 400 prisoners. I will start on first train for Cincinnati.
All apprehension of danger to Cincinnati from Morgan passed, we were relieved. And at 7 a.m. Sunday, July 19th, we left for Rhode Island where, on the 29th day of July, 1863, we were mustered out of the service of the United States.
Away from their families for 10 months, Block Island welcomed their dearly missed sons, brothers, and fathers. Noah Ball, 18 years old, returned home with the regiment, but was still suffering from typhoid. He was reunited with his family for 2 more weeks before passing away.
Rest, rest, now all thy work is done. Thy fight is o'er, thy victory won.
Lewis went on to become the father of 7 children. His descendants remain on the island today. He passed away in 1895, at age 69. John and his wife Susan went on to have 6 more children. He continued his work as a mason, carpenter, and house builder. 54 years later, 1917, New Shoreham's Memorial Day celebration honored their only remaining Civil War veterans. as the parade's grand marshals: First Lieutenant Jeremiah Turgee, Private John Thomas. John's son Justin, his wife Emma, and their children were all there to see the event, including John's youngest grandchildren, Justin Jr. and Mary. 5 years after, in early 1921, the island lost one of their last remaining Civil War heroes. Jeremiah passed away at age 78. He left behind his wife Estella and children. His funeral was held on the island, and he was interred in North Kingstown, alongside his ancestors who were among the first settlers of Rhode Island. Months later, John also passed away while visiting his daughter in Massachusetts. He was 89 years old. His burial was in Cranston, Rhode Island, next to his wife, Susan.
Block Island was greatly grieved to learn of the death of John Thomas, the last Civil War veteran in New Shoreham. Without doubt, Mr. Thomas was the most widely known citizen of the last half-century.
For 4 days, the flags on the Weather Bureau and Mohegan Hall flew at half-mast.